Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Carlos Inspire Show. And today we have an outstanding, very special guest, a great friend of mine. I'm just so happy, and I was looking forward to this interview for a while. And I'm going to introduce you. This is amazing. This person over here, we got Mr. Don Green in the house. He's the resident of Wise, Virginia, the birthplace of Napoleon Hill. Don Green brings nearly 45 years of banking, financing, and entrepreneurship experience to his role as an executive director of the Napoleon Hill Foundation. His first youthful business venture was charging the admission to see his pet bear. Yes, the living, growling kind. Since 2000, Green has traveled worldwide and used his finance skills to grow the foundation's funds in order to continue the foundation's educational outreach. Green has both model leadership skills as a CEO and taught them through the PMA Science of Success course at the University of Virginia's College at Wise. Don specializes in discussing his personal experiences in leadership and providing audiences with proven methods and applying Dr. Hill's success philosophy to business. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. Hill. How you doing, my friend Don?
I'm great, Carlos. I'm glad to be with you. I enjoyed our events we had in Houston and the time we got to spend together. I admire your background. One of the great lessons in Think and Grow Rich is overcoming adversity. But you know what most people do? What do? They just quit. They accept their fate like, this is the way it is. This is the way it's always been. This is the way it's going to always be. And not realizing that they can develop a burning desire and follow the principles as Napoleon Hill taught, where they understand them or not. Some people do those things without ever reading the book, but definitely the reading the book and telling us to start off with a purpose and develop a belief in ourselves. And you're not likely to advance much in life because not too many people approach you and say, boy, I got an opportunity for you. You got to get up off the sofa, cut the TV off, and get out there and do something. I used to sit with Mr. Stone. Of course, he was a billionaire, and he was our chairman. I attended his celebration of life. He lived to be 100. And he would always say, he would say, just do it. We think Nike got that from him because the key word in all of philosophy is action. We know we say think and grow rich, but you got to do more. You got to move past the think. You got to develop some ideas and get help from experts, or if need be, to put them in place and develop persistence. I know I just finished reading Steve Jobs' book, his bio, and he said of all the things he possessed, he put persistence. In other words, he had an idea. But Hill used to, I've read some of his audios I listened to, he'd ask the audience, he would say to you, Carlos, how many times do you think people try something before they give up on average? And he would get answers like 2, 3, 4. He said, no, I said the average. He said the average is less than 1. Some people try 10 times if it takes. Edison tried 10,000 times. Some people may try 2 or 3 times. Some try 1. But he said most people have an idea. And then they talk themselves out of it. Say, nah, my wife said that wouldn't work. Because so-and-so told me that wouldn't work. And they listen to opinions, which Hill describes opinions as being the cheapest commodity on earth. If you have an idea, you have to study it and stick with it and make a plan and develop persistence. But most people are simply not, they think they can think of something and, we can talk about Ferrari or whatever. And I say, boy, I've always wanted a red one. And Carlos said, no, I want a black one. It's not going to be in the garage the next day. If we sleep on it and wake up, it's not going to be in the garage unless we do something else to bring it about.
Wow, Don, you got me the chills here right now because I need to find this. I had a page here that I had. This is crazy. You're bringing this up. This is the Napoleon Hill Think and Go Rich Action Pack book. I don't know if you probably know about this one because I'm big. I literally, I decipher, Napoleon Hill and then, you as the president and director of the foundation. But this is crazy, because you say the word persistence and, here's something crazy. Look what I have here. A sticker on page 177. And there's a green sticker there to remind me. And that sticker say persistence. This is crazy how you brought this up. This is like, and over here it says, right? Anyone can learn persistence. Persistence is the state of mind. Therefore, it can be cultivated. Like all stages of mind, persistence is based upon definite causes among them. Definiteness, and then 1, definiteness of purpose. 2, desire. 3, self-reliance. 4, definiteness of plan. And 5, accurate knowledge. This is crazy. You gave me the chills because I have a little sticker note, in this particular book on my action pack. I was like, wow. Right when you brought that up, my mind was like, it's because every time when I go back in light and in all the amazing people, the billionaires and the amazing leaders, that you've been surrounding with, all the amazing people that you've been learning, some of the people that I've been around with, billionaires and celebrities around the world. And that's one thing that we all have in common. It's that the persistence. It's that for us, this is our purpose. Like for us, this is like, ain't no struggle, ain't no rejection. We will dance with rejection. We will dance with the struggle. We will see the devils in the eyes and we'll stab him in the back. We have faith. We believe in something bigger than ourselves. We know that we are no longer here, Don, on this planet, that they're going to say, you know what? Don Green was here. Carlos Cicada were here. Every time they showed up to blow up. And then we remind ourselves every day, as I always talk on this stage, the days that break you are the days that make you, and it's crazy you brought this up about persistence. And it's so many things come to mind here, Don. And Don, I know that you and I serve a lot of amazing and wealthy people out there. But one thing, since I was a child in Brazil, when I used to sell bread on the streets, I would ask business owners and very successful people like yourself. So for the people that are going to listen to us here, Don, because we have people here from all around the world that are going to be listening to us, internationally, from all different types of society. If they are starting now, Don, if they don't have the money and they starting now, and if you would be, let's say I drop you anywhere in the world, Don, and you have to start it over again, based on all the principles that you learned from Napoleon Hill and all the billionaires and all the amazing people you mentor and you're surrounding with, because, we learn just as much from the people that we mentor. What is 3 things, Don, that you would do different if you would start over again, and if you didn't have the resources, the money, for example, to start building an empire so that we can leave that legacy for somebody that want to be like us? They want to be able to have several books. They want to speak on the stage. They want to mentor others. They want to be part of a legacy. Like you are part of the Napoleon Hill Foundation. They trusted you. It's like, what an honor. I would love, have that honor. You know what I mean? It's like very few people in the world can say that. So what would you say, Don, like 3 things that if you would start it over, for that person that's listening to us here right now?
If I didn't have ideas, I would read biographies and people who's been successful. I said, if you just think how monkeys act, they learn from other monkeys, and we learn by watching and emulating successful people, and make sure if monkeys can learn from monkeys, we can learn from people that knows a lot more than we do. You don't have to invent the wheel again. If it's already out there and somebody's done it, if you follow the same prescription that other people have followed and done over a period of time, you'll have success. You may have to alter it. You may have to go to people that knows more than you do. But the main thing is having an idea and having plans. And Hill says, if you have an idea and you have plans, the plans may not work out. You can always change your plans, but you got to start. You got to start from somewhere. Like you and I were said we were going to, from Houston, we wanted to go to Naples, Florida. We kind of know the direction of the map and all of this, but we got to figure out some steps along the way where we make turns and what have you. And if we're traveling down a road and it's, every what reason it's these obstacles are, the roads under construction. They said road closed for floods or what. Why can't we turn around and go in a different direction? There's more than one way to get there. But most people just give up. Well, my wife said, you know, it probably wouldn't work. I probably waste my time and money. Or my best friend said, but I always remember that story of Bannister that broke a 4-minute mile. When we say something's impossible, that only means that somebody's not done it before. That's all it means. It's funny. I'm reading Leonardo da Vinci's, and he was the first guy to come up with heavier than things that can fly, heavier than aircraft, things that it shouldn't be. But he studied the birds and what have you. And I've got a newspaper clip on Napoleon Hill covered the Wright brothers' flight. You know, it said a young cub reporter named Napoleon Hill covered the flight, the Wright brothers, and he later flew with them. But the very week the Wright brothers flew, some professor, I don't remember where his professor, some professor, he wrote a paper on why that aircraft was not possible. He wrote a paper to prove that man can never fly. You know, he can't put an object apart that can fly that's heavier than it was impossible. The same week that the Wright brothers did it, and the Wright brothers believed they could do it, and a lot of people thought he was crazy, including his father. But they stuck with it. You know, they had a bicycle shop, but they had this idea of watching birds that some way or another man could, and basically it changed the world, just like Edison's light bulb did. It was impossible. People, Marconi, read Marconi's story. A wireless, his family took him to have him evaluated. They thought he lost his mind, and he finally convinced them. But you know, I mean, to be able to send voice with no means, just picked up the or what you want to call it, transport someplace without a wire or whatever. Well, you know, I mean, are you crazy? So you tell someone, are you crazy? I mean, you know, that's the kind of answers he did. And of course, he proved otherwise because he bravely did that. And, you know, in no time you're making across the oceans and so forth. And I mean, I talked to the guy that invented the cell phone. And he had the idea. It's a guy by the name of Cooper. He's an older guy now, but he had the idea. And of course, if you've ever seen the first one, it's about this long. And he went to IBM. He thought that was, you know, that would be the people, you know, he needed money, you know, to develop it. He had the idea. They told him there wasn't no, you know, it just, you know, wouldn't be no use for it. And he went to Motorola, and Motorola helped him. And he said when he got it perfected, the first call he made was he called the guy at IBM and said, "Hey, I got my cell phone working." So I'm sure he got pleasures out of it. And I could tell you a personal story. Senator Mark Warner from Virginia, probably one of he'll get me up for this, but he's probably one of the richest people in the Senate. When he was young, he told me this on several occasions. I supported him when he ran for governor, took him around, introduced him a few times, and I did when he was U.S. Senator. And he come to my book signing when my book came out. But he needed $10,000 when he was rather young. Knew his father didn't have it, and what he was doing was he could obtain the cell phone was new. He could obtain the rights for Virginia for cell phones. And I'll repeat it about as good as he told it was. He didn't ask his dad because his dad didn't have it, so he asked an uncle. And he told him, he said, "Mark, people don't want to drive around in their damn car talking on no damn telephone." He said, "You're just going to waste your money and I'm not going to let you have it." So he finally got a friend to go to the bank, sign his note. But when he sold out, he said it was with Netflix, or he sold out, he walked away with $175 million on a $10,000 investment, which he had to borrow because he believed in what he was doing. And later, my partner and I, we invested in one of his other companies. But it's a remarkable story that someone had that idea, but no, it seemed that nobody else could see it. But he turns $10,000 into $175 million. Pretty daggone nice story. But now he could listen to someone other, and as Hill said, their opinion was it was useless. But like Hill said, opinions are a worthless commodity. And if you strong really believe in something other, and that's when Hill said, purpose, he didn't say wish for something other. He said a burning desire. That means if necessary, I'm going to be thinking about it when I go to sleep. I'm going to wake up thinking about it. And when I'm having my meals, I'm going to be thinking about it. And that's probably a pretty good way to be successful, is to have a burning desire and be willing to pay the price. I know Brian Tracy used it on the back of his books, and of course, our his school was founded by Thomas Jefferson. And Jefferson said, the saddest day in a person's life is when they sit down and figure they can obtain something for nothing. There's a price to pay. Are we willing to give up watching the ball games or following sports or just doing nothing? If you got a regular 8-hour job a day or 9 hours or what you work, probably what you do on the way from your job is more important than what you're doing on your job. Because I'm coming out of the bank one day and this guy had a cell phone in his hand. And he said, "Hey, Don," he said, "Let me ask you something." I said, I got a little bit of money. He said, "I know you, I know from what I heard that you invest in the stock market." He said, "What would you invest in?" And I said, "I will tell you the same thing if anybody else asks me. The first thing you do is to invest in yourself." That's the reason people should attend your seminars, or somebody said, he's been there, he's done that. I'm going to learn something, And if you only walk away with one idea from reading a good book or attending a seminar, you pick up one thing and say, "Yeah, I hadn't thought of that," and make you some notes. And I don't care if it's church. You may get some good advice that you can apply somewhere. And I think if we look at education and learning, it's a continuous process. If we ever Carlos ever gets pointed, "I don't know it all," you're sunk. Yeah. Because your manner of delivery and contacts and stuff should be changing every day. And I say, I'll be 78 here in a few days. And I said, the older I get, the more I realize what I don't know.
Wow.
So that's the reason I keep reading it and following people and learning something sometimes. And as Hill said, sometimes we learn from people. It's important to learn what not to do. If you saw someone get burnt because they put a hand on the stove and you never seen it before, you kind of believe what you see. You don't have to experience. Sometimes I think learning from failure is important, but we don't live long enough to make all the mistakes. If we can learn from other people and avoid a lot of them, like if you get some good advice from people who have book publications, you don't go into it blind. I remember the first time I had a meeting with officials at Penguin Random House. Of course, I'd been a banker. I was a bank president for almost 20 years. They said, "We love Napoleon Hill because of the shelf life." That term, didn't knowledge, was not a term we use in banking. Now, if they'd said CDs and a bunch of other words, abbreviations, so I know what it's talking about. They said shelf life. And of course, shelf life simply means that once they got that book printed, it stays in demand. It's on the shelves, long shelf life. In other words, I've got Success to a Positive Mental Attitude with Simon & Schuster. It was printed in 1960, which is a long time ago. It's at 58 years. It's the 59th year. It still sells well. I get a good royalty check twice a year from them. It sells well in audio and it sells well in ebook and the hard copy. It still sells well. And so that's what we mean is something is so good that people don't get tired of it. And most of the things like we call them detectives or whatever, and I love to read some of them without mentioning them's name. But if you'll notice, most of them have done 20 books. They'll do one if they're a John Grisham or David Baldacci, some of them. But they do one, and if you read it, you don't go back and pick up and read it again. You read Think and Grow Rich or the Bible or a good book that there's advice in. You don't say, "Well, I've read it." Because how we learn is, and I get that question a lot, is why should I go back and read it? I said, well, maybe you're smarter than I am. I did not get all my ABCs the first time when I said them. We learn best by repeating things. And it's not that Think and Grow Rich has changed. It's the same as it was in 37, but just like gravity, we learn by repeating stuff. And the principles that was worked in, they'll work today. If you follow the same thing, you can expect to get about the same results. But also we go back and read some of that stuff like Think and Grow Rich or good books, is The material's not changed, but we have. You've been to seminars and you've heard these other people that's been ultra successful, and people that's made a lot of money and been successful in business. So you've got an added perspective. You've become more educated. You understand better. And so the material didn't change. But 10 years ago, when you read that and you read it 10 years ago today, you'll look at it and say, gosh, man, I didn't realize that. You know, it was there the whole time, but you had changed. You got a different perspective on things. And that's the reason it's so important to learn from other people is we get a different perspective with a little added knowledge here and there that we've done it. And like I said, from learning during that process, you're so much more effective because you've got additional knowledge and you've learned a lot, just like learning to deal with a publisher, things to avoid, you know, don't get trapped in something other, you know, and, you know, there's all kinds of things that you can negotiate. Like if I do a foreign book and if we give it 5 years, and if it doesn't pay at what we agree on the royalty is, we can cancel the contract, or we won't renew it because we want somebody to promote the book. So there's a lot of things you can do to protect yourself. Because hey, listen, they're gonna have smart lawyers on their side. Penguin Random House attorneys who pay you a tremendous advance, but they can take 6 months to develop a contract. So, you know, somebody's got to go through it. The contracts that we do we've got almost 500 foreign publishers. I've got thousands of contracts that we've done. And I mean, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, I've done nearly 23, 24 different books with them. And we prepare all the foreign contracts because they're simple. But the contract prepared in the United States is prepared by your publisher's attorney. And so they've got their attorneys getting everything in that they want to protect themselves. And so you have to get some advice from other people to protect your earners. Because once it's signed, whether it be buyback price or where you sell it at, how much they're going to spend on promotion, and what they will do to help you promote it without you have to pay an arm and a leg. Because some of them would give you a decent amount of money and say, well, we throw it out there and if they work real hard, they make some money, they'll make us some money. And have no idea. I mean, just think Amazon. And I've done books with Amazon, and I have 34 audios with Brilliance, which is owned by Amazon. They have 34 of them. But Amazon has over 7 million books listed on there. And now, why are they going to promote Don Green's or Carlos's book? We need something in there that says the minimum, at least the minimum, how much they'll spend and what they will do and how much we can buy the books from and how much we can promote it. So, you know, if you had your book and you sent it to 100 of your friends with a little note in there, and we did a card that says, this is our newest publication. Please read it. If you enjoyed it, would you mind going on Amazon and do a review? And so, you know, that's the reason you want books. A book you give away could be someone who turns around and buys a lot of them for the gifts, or they tell a lot of people, they post it on their things and so forth. So anything you can get in that contract to better your chances of being successful is what you need, because, you know, you can't do it all yourself.
Yeah.
You do it through other people.
Yeah,
that's willing to help you. And most people are willing, are more than willing to do a favor for you, to post it on Instagram, their Facebook people's or whatever.
Yes. No, he's always talk about, Don, like, this is the year of collaboration, right? And you just dropped so much knowledge here. Like, for you Vera out there, I want you guys to go back on this because this is so important. Just like you have to fail forward, fail faster. You know, I think it's Dale Carnegie that says this quote, and am I going to screw up the quote here? But the moral of the quote is that the greatness leaders in the planet, the people that has done the most, they came from nothing and they failed and they went against the most, you know, you cannot even think about the type of odds, what they had to go through, but because they kept failing forward, failing faster, failing quicker, they end up getting to the end result. Like when Napoleon Hill started, he was broke. He didn't have nothing. And he just started. He decided to put himself out there in the environment. Don Green put himself out there in the environment. And we kept failing forward. Like, Don, you know, you made me go back to my childhood here. like failing forward. And then I started seeing all that violence growing up. And I was like, why those leaders don't show up here in my country? Why they don't come? I would ask my grandma, after my grandpa would come home and then would abuse us. And then we would lock the door and I would push the furniture against the door and so that he couldn't come in. And I would lay down below her hammock. And then I would say, Grandma, we used to cry. And then she'd say, you know what, son, it's better to laugh instead of crying. And then she used to translate it, Les Brown quotes in Portuguese, shoot for the moon, son, and you will land among the stars. Stay hungry. Greatness is within you. But you see, those words, Don, they became embedded in my subconscious mind that I wanted to be. If they're not going to come here into the Brazil, into the hood, into the favelas, into the streets, I was going to become that person. I draw a line and say, I don't care how much hell, rejection, abuse, torture, hunger I have to endure, I will find a way. When I got to Boston, you made me think about this. You're talking about, reading the biographies. First come to this country with $800 in my pocket. I'll go to the mayor's office to grab food. And then after I grab food, like a loaf of bread and some cans of soup, I have a little bag. And then on the way home, it was a library. And then not my home, I was sleeping in a house on the floor, at a friend's house, for a couple of months. And there was a library. And I wanted to learn English faster. So I'll go to the library and I will pick it up. Audio books and biographies and like books on Napoleon Hill and, like Think and Go Rich and all the amazing books out there, Outwitting the Devil and, you name it, the Bible, all the books that I love, and I would just 7 Habits, Stephen Covey, you name it, and then just read. And I saw that it's just fascinating how they all came from nothing, but they had that message inside of them. They put themselves out there. They interviewed the greatest. They had a voice. They know they have something within them. And I always tell people, man, if you haven't died, it's for a reason. You know what I mean? I tell people, you don't tell God, why me? You say, God, show me. You know what I mean? You're going to face hell. I'll tell you something right now, listener. It's possible. You might be right now on the bottom and you don't have nothing. It's possible. Like Don say, start. Just start. And don't actually answer the question that I always love to ask. What is the 3 questions that you get asked the most? And he also answered some of these questions. And he dropped massive, knowledge on books and books, contracts, and all these amazing things. And then, Don, tell me something. What is something that you were never asked for that you wish somebody would have asked you? I always love to ask this question.
Well, I'm kind of surprised. I'm sure it might have happened over a period of time, but people ask me, I'll get asked, I would think a lot more people would ask how I ever got the job as executive director of the Napoleon Hill Foundation. And of course, I wrote a little bit about my book. Sometimes our ship don't come in. We might have to swim out where it is. In other words, what I mean by is there's nobody liable to knock on your door and say, Carlos, cut that television off. I've got something for you. But I wrote the foundation and told him what I'd done. I'd read the books. He was from the same area I was. And I thought I'd just give him some information. I was a bank president. I was in all kinds of businesses. I didn't need it, but they invited me to come to Chicago and have dinner with them. And of course, I wanted to meet Mr. Stone. I had to actually, how I got the idea for it. I spoke at a historical society, and one of my members, I said it wasn't too bad for not to be paid, but I didn't even get fed. I just met for a group of 25 people, and I talked about Napoleon Hill. But I listened to a tape from Mr. Stone, so I had it on my ideas. I was driving back home. It was about a 15-minute drive, and so I took my pad out before I got into bed, and I wrote a letter to him. And then when I went in the next morning, I gave it to my secretary and asked her to send it. And then I got contacted back, asked me to come and have dinner with them. And of course, I was anxious to meet Mr. Stone. Mr. Hill was dead, but Stone was. And I waited. He sat down so I could sit where he sat because I wanted to be able to talk to him through the dinner and so forth. And I remember one particular story I remember about him. He wrote about a little bit about it in the book, but he was 6 years old. His mother was a seamstress, single parent. He went on a paper, as you might have read it, he wrote part of it in a book once, that he was 6 years old and he'd get beat up by the boys bigger than him, didn't, turn to take their corner selling papers. So he goes into a restaurant and started selling them to the people having breakfast. And they would sell a few of them, and the owner would say, "You can't do that in here." And he'd lead him outside. Well, he talked about the risk and rewards. He'd always go in there. He could sell a few before the guy put him out. And so one day he did so many times that he led him to the door that the people in the restaurant eating said, "Oh, leave him alone. He's not hurting nothing." So then all of a sudden he's got that restaurant all by himself. He goes in there every morning and sells a bunch of papers. And more than that, he said, no matter how rough it had been of a night, him and his mom got on their knees at the foot of the bed and gave thanks. Following kind of what he did and where he got to was just kind of amazing story. And of course, he was Give, Think, and Grow Rich, and he gave away thousands of copies. If you meet anybody that's ever worked for Combine Insurance Company, and they buy thousands of books, from us every year. They give their books to their employees, and I hear it over and over again. But you know the things he did. You know, if I could, we can't get it, but I can turn around there and look, and I can see Mr. Stone's picture in the White House with Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan said Clem, and nobody calls him Clem. Said Clem, best wishes, Ron Reagan, and of course there's a flag in the background and a portrait, I guess, of some of the other presidents. He's in the White House, so he ventured out. I remember sitting with him and we talked about different books and all, and I'd read the same things basically he had read. Frank Channing Haddock and wrote Power of Will, in which is nothing but perseverance. I've got his personal copy for sometime you visit me. It's in our archives. He underlined practically every line. It's nothing on it. It's nothing on it but the Power of Will or our persistence, and that separates people. It's not just people that's intelligent, but people that's some of the I would call them the biggest failures in life who've got PhDs. You know, never done nothing with it. They told us in school that knowledge is power, P-O-W-R. It's only potential power. It's not worth nothing. Go on Jeopardy and show how smart you are. Do something with it. But just to acquire it and not put it to use is not much value. It's the application of what you learned. If someone tells you how to write a good book and you think about it, you'd be surprised, Carlos. A number of people tell me they've been thinking about writing this book for 20 years. I said, thinking don't do it. I mean, if you're going to write the book, write the dang book, you know. And then as John Shedd, one of the authors, said was, almost anybody can write a book. Hardest thing in the world is to sell it. You got to get out there and promote it. I remember speaking of my book come out, I spoke to Aquinas, and there were about 20 some odd people in there, but all of but two had done bought the book. And so, but you know, it might sound like a failure, but it was in November. And so they said, well, what can we get them for to give them for gifts? So I ended up selling a bunch more. But it don't matter if it's two people. You know, somebody said, what do you say when you talk for us 20-some thousand people out in Vegas? I said, I say the same thing if it was two people in a room. It's the same message, one-on-one. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many's listening. What matters is how many people you influence. You only influence one, or you influence 10, or you influence 100, or whatever it is. But that's what you do. But Mr. Stone said, he called me boy. I wasn't a boy, but you're probably 80.
How old were you when you had that meeting? What an honor to meet, Mr. Stone. Wow.
When I met Mr. Stone, it would have been, let's see, he's been dead 20 years. Gosh, it was in the late 80s probably. And anyway, he called me boy. He said, boy, you know more about these books than I do. He said, you ought to be on my board. And I said, Mr. Stone, what do I have to do? He said, we won't pay you, but we'll pay you expenses. He said, you just keep up with what's going on. And that was it. So then later we had a chance to sell the bank. And I knew the foundation, the other guy was health was not good, and he couldn't travel at all. And they were looking for a replacement. And one guy said, Don, who knows as much about this stuff as you do? And I said, guys, I'm a president of a bank. We got a chance to sell it. But I said, start off with, I want to live in Chicago. And I said, but if you really want me to run the job I can move it to Wise. They said, you can move it, I said, man, there's nothing to it. It's all in her head in the books. I said, all I got to do is transfer the bank accounts. I said, I own all the books already. And that's how I started. I had a dry cleaners. And I put an office in particular to work out of the house. And I went to Walmart. I believe it's before the internet. And I bought a fax machine with a phone built in it. And of course, in the cleaners, I had to keep the door shut because of noise. And I used a phone and a fax machine. I acquired from reading that there's a book that published publishers all over the world. It gave their name, it gave their fax number, it gave their, there was no email, and it told how many books they published the previous year and what their genre was. In other words, is medical or did they do self-help, motivation, or what have you. So I would sit down and list those things, and I would write the ones in China, and I did this, and a girl would stop at work for me at the bank. She'd stop, pick it up, type it up, drop it off the next morning, and I'd fax it to them people, and I started getting them in, and I started making a ton of money. And I mean, shortly, I know I need somebody, and I told her, I said, Nita, I got to hire somebody full time. And she said, I'd love to work for you. And I said, I'll take care of you. I'll pay you more than what you make at the bank. I know what you make. I'll pay you a lot more. And she said, I'll take you. I know you will. And she said, I'll give them notice. And she came to work for me. She worked for me. Well, she started in June, but then I've had her granddaughter work for me as a student. She was valedictorian. She worked 6 years. She's now a pharmacist. And then her grandson's worked for me since he's 14. That's Zane. He came to work with me when he was 14 years old. And he's standing around back in the back room once in a while. But I've started him at $10 an hour in 8th grade. Because he knew more about the computer than what I do today. And he finished in 3 years, a double major. And he's studying online. He'll be a CPA
Wow.
He can take the exam in May. And so he's worked for me 8 years, and he learned a lot. Even in the financial world, he started in college with it. A lot of kids have checking accounts, but he had a stock account. He could buy his own stock, and he had a retirement account, and he's kept them up. So he's learned a lot. He's been we work real good together.
And Donnie, speaking of autograph signed copies, I'm so grateful that I have a few signed autographs books over here from you. Think and Go Rich, Outwitting the Devil. But this is a special one over here, man. And I wanted to tell the listeners a little bit about this book because I am fascinated by it. It's an amazing book that you wrote. Everything I know about success, I learned from Napoleon Hill. Tell us, the reader here, why is this book is a must that they should have in their library? Because I always tell people that is always, you got to have your top 10 books in your library. And this book over here, it's wow. That's one thing that I got to say, wow.
I'd been to Malaysia twice, and a lady got in touch with me and had her material last. She's a lawyer, very successful. And she was enthused by it. She called me one day and wanted me to come over to an international convention. And I can remember, it's been years ago, but one of the persons on it was Deepak Chopra. He was a speaker, and I spoke, and she made a remark to me, and some other people had said, you ought to tell him stories because my life's like yours. It's just stories, it's just stories. And I think most people love stories. You tell a story. Carlos tells a story. I might not remember everything that you said, but I will remember your story. How you come to this country and so forth, and you said your mom's not going to be abused no more, and so forth. Remember that. Remember the stories, and so I was told I should write the book. So I went out. Well, we do scholarships. I don't need the money, so everyone I get advanced or what we get for book sales, it'll go to help scholars because we're in an area of poverty. It's a coal mining area. I think about 80% of the kids' family had no formal education, beyond just high school, and so I thought it could make a difference. And I thought the idea was to me, God, if somebody dumb and of the background you got, your parents went to 7th grade, your mom was 16 kids, your dad was a dozen, and all they dropped out of school after 7th grade because there was nowhere else to go, and they went to work. I mean, if a boy was 14 years old and he didn't have a job, man, he should be working, helping a family. A lot of kids in the family. So, I thought, I could help out, and I just told some of the stories. I remember this lady from Colorado. She interviewed me one time on the phone, and she said she had my bio. I don't know who she talked to. she said, I got the information on you, Mr. Green says, you grew up without a bathroom. I said, no, that's not right. She said, what do you mean? I said, it was not in the house. We had to go to it. I said, she said, what do you mean? I said, well, it meant if you had the urge to go to the bathroom, you had to get up and put your pants on, a pair of shoes, and get your flashlight so the snakes wouldn't bite you. You step on the snake, and so she got a big life out of it. But I didn't think nothing about it because the other kids where we lived at was the same way. We lived in the country. You know, your dad worked in the coal mines underground, and we learned some things on tour. Mom would say, if you ask for something other, she'd say, now we can't waste our money. Said, your poor old daddy has to crawl down on his knees and make a living, and said, we don't know when he might get hurt or get killed, and we won't have no money coming in. So it meant go pick up the pop bottles, go use a push mower and get a quarter from on a yard. And believe me, and I see it today, and I own Walmart stock, and I love Walmart. I got the Sam Walton Award one year for the work I done in the community. I got his book, and I got his cap and a plaque. But anyway, I see, you go in Walmart and you see all them kids out there putting that money in them machines, hoping to win something. Them kids didn't walk miles and pick up pop bottles for a penny a piece. That was money given to them by their parents or by their grandparents, and it has no meaning to them. You know, they stick their hand out and they give them a few bucks or whatever, and they basically blow it. I didn't blow it. I remember making $3 when I was 5 years old, and I got a better feeling now making that $3 than what I did when I was a banker when I sold a piece of land harder for $2 million to Walmart. That $3 meant more to me. I didn't even have a billfold, and I was 5 years old. We dug Dad showed me how to dig mayapple, which is a herb, and I think it was 15 cents a pound. But anyway, I went with him to take it off to the place that bought. They dug ginseng, and their weekends and so forth when it wasn't working. And anyway, that man paid him, and he figured it out. But he gave me 3 ones. He said, "This was your part." And I could count. I was 5 years old. I would put that $3 in my pocket. I know I couldn't go 2 minutes or 3 without pulling it out and counting it again. I'm getting like, I still got $3. You know, I'd count it 1, 2, 3, and it meant that much. It meant that much to me. But I earned that money, yes. and you developed it. That money you earned, you could win the lottery and you wouldn't feel as good as, you know, you said, Carlos made this money himself. You know, he got up early and he worked late and he made that. And some of the things you learned, like my daughter's a CPA, but she's got her own business. She's done extremely well. She's working for some rich people the last couple of weeks in Naples, Florida. But anyway, she was in the Girl Scouts. And I told her, I said, she's real anxious, real energetic, and I told her, I said, now I will tell you how to sell the Girl Scout cookies. Your mom's going to drive you through the neighborhood, and when you knock on her door, you're going to wear your little uniform with all your badges and so forth on it. And I said, when they come to the door, you're selling 4 cookies. You're selling, I said, mint, chocolate chip, peanut butter, and one of them. They were four cookies. And when they come to the door, as you say, I'm Donna, I'm from Troop so-and-so, and said, we have 4 cookies we sell to raise money. Which ones would you like to buy? You don't, and I said, what do you mean? I said, you don't ask them if they want cookies or not. They can say yes or no. But the decision is, it doesn't matter which one. You ask them which ones they want, and they're going to buy something from you. So to make a long story short, one Saturday I'm going to the office. I was a finance manager as far as got in banking. And I was doing some work, and her and her mom went in the bank, and she told one of the tellers, she said, told who she was, said, my daddy's got a lot of money in this bank. I might have had $200 because I know what I was making. I was just getting started kind of. And she said, would y'all sell my cookies, Girl Scout cookies? And they said, yeah. I said, do you get your daddy to bring a box here? Well, they were about, it was First National. There were about 6 tellers across the front. And so they thought it's funny, one of what she said, but they got to compete and see which one of the little Donna's cookies they could sell. Well, to make a long story short, when the cookie selling was over, she sold more than the whole troop did, you know, because she had learned enough to make a difference. And
wow, I love that story.
Funny stories. One of her things was collecting autographs. And she'd read the paper. I told her, you know, she'd see notable people in there and she could find out how to contact them. Nixon was president at the time. So she thought it'd be great to get Nixon's autograph. So she wrote to the White House, I'm an 11-year-old Girl Scout, and I'm clicking. And so the letter comes back with a little card, said the president's very busy and we're happy to furnish you with a facsimile of his signature. And she said, what does that mean? I said, that means that he don't take time to give it to you. That's just a picture of his signature. She said, well, that's no good. And I said, well, what do you think can come up with? I said, you have to ask someone to go to the president in your behalf because you're not going to get to see him. And so she knew Hubert Humphrey. She said, well, how about Senator Humphrey? Said, I saw him on TV and said he's got a little special granddaughter. She was mentally retarded. And I said, you write him at the Senate and tell him. So he writes Humphreys a letter and told about watching his little granddaughter and said, I'm in the Girl Scouts and I want Mr. President Nixon's signature and I've not been able to get it. So I don't know how long it was, 2 or 3 weeks or something. She gets a nice letter from the White House. The president is glad to answer Mr. Senator Humphrey's request and we'll provide you with a signature. And she got Richard Nixon's signature. But it was teaching her lessons in perseverance, not just saying, well, you can quit. Because I can remember when she got married, she was her husband. He's got an MBA. He was treasurer of a large coal company, and he told me one day, he said, "Your daughter could make money standing on a flat rock." I said, he said, "Where did she learn that from?" I said, I don't have a clue. But you got the desire, a burning desire, and a belief and persistence. I mean, there's absolutely no limits. But most of the people people don't compensate things. It's not that they don't talk themselves into something; they talk themselves out of something other. You know, you give yourself 10,000 negative comments to yourself. We tend to believe ourselves. You know, we can say, you should be to try that. You know, I'm not going to, you know. The story of one of my partners, he took my first class, high school graduate, and he sold out for $45 million by making a series of little stores. He only had one when I started. And one day we was at lunch and we was coming out and the guy walking across the parking lot. Wendell says to him, asked him, I didn't see the guy, but I didn't know him, but he tells me this guy's wife worked for Wendell, run his, he had convenience stores with food service in them, you know, like some of them had Taco Bell, some of them had burger, different ones, you know, service station or convenience store. And so he asked that guy, called him a name, said, you ever get you a job? He said, no. He said, well, just wondered, said, where all have you applied? He said, there's nobody hiring. The guy's probably not going to get a job. He's got a wife working. He's probably getting a bunch of benefits. I don't know what. But, you know, he said, there's no use applying. There's nobody hiring, you know. And so he done really talked himself out of a job, you know. Of course, I guess if you got hungry enough, you know, you'd probably go steal something. But we have to be careful about things like that, saying, wow. Thinking, well, that's too big. You know, well, why would a big old publisher want to publish my book or something? I don't know, but you ain't gonna know until you try it, you find out, you know. But the thing is, in presenting it to them a couple of chapters of it, is wow. Big thing that wants the platform. What's Carlos going to do to sell this book? And if you've got a good enough platform, and of course we're fortunate to have the Napoleon Hill Foundation, which is a good start because of our social media and the people that know who Napoleon Hill is. That's off to a good start. But you've got to convince them that the book's going to sell. And so many people don't. A lot of them take a shortcut by paying somebody a whole lot of money to print the thing. My God, you can get the thing printed on Amazon through CreateSpace for less than $1,000, you know, and ain't no big deal to put it and get it listed. The job is, once that thing is wrote, is sell that book. Yes. Speak to everybody you can do every interview you can do, and never miss a chance where it's a few people or a whole lot of people, and have people working on your behalf that people feels good about doing you favors.
Yes, no, there's so many lessons here too, John. You know, Don, it's like I wish we had so much more time, because you and I, it's like, guys, it's just so important that you go back and you listen to this interview over and over and over again. From his daughter, you know, selling that cookies, like, you know what I mean, is from the persistence, from, you know what I mean, all the strategies for the books, you know what I mean, like collaboration, being, you know, around others, you know what I mean, just really think truly before you put something out. on social media, before you write your book, before you go on a stage, you need to think truly throughout your processes and your systems and just ask better questions every day. Every day I wake up in the morning, you know what I mean? I tell myself, you know, what can I do today that nobody else is doing, nobody else is thinking of doing, nobody else won't do? What can I do right now that we can be indestructible, indispensable, incomparable? It's that mindset, that everything that Don has been talking about over here, that he learned from Napoleon Hill, from Clement Stone, from all these strategies that he discussed here, and then all the amazing things in his book, you know, everything that I learned from Napoleon Hill is just guys that, you know, wow. And Don, you know, I have one last question over here for you, my friend, because I know that, you know, your time is very valuable and I appreciate you here. I know the listeners definitely, you know what I mean, and I have so much to take out of from this, is if you could go back in time and give an advice to your, you know, 18-year-old when you first started the journey, when you start, you know, working, like understanding, you know what I mean? What is one advice that you would give to that person? And what is one advice? It's a 2-in-1 question. And what is one advice that would you give yourself, you know, 10 years from now? So your future self and your younger self. Let's start with your younger self.
Would be simply to learn all you can learn, and read. I mean, read the biographies. I don't care if it's Abe Lincoln or Martin Luther King or Franklin Roosevelt or whatever. You learn. Some of them were born in fluency, but a lot of them weren't. And I think the ones like you, yourself, and myself, we probably appreciate a little more because they said we weren't born with a silver spoon, but we developed a belief in ourselves that we study and work hard and develop the qualities that successful people do. I said, if you read Billy Ray Cyrus, the musician's book, Hillbilly Hardy was born not far from here, and I believe I saw he's somewhere worth 100 million or so. He's done pretty well. Of course, he's Miley Cyrus's father, but he said he got thrown out of school for having a dog in his room, a stray dog, and he was on a baseball scholarship, and he wanted to be a pro baseball player, and he played semi-pro. But he said he didn't tell who, but he said our Dr. Bailey gave him Think and Grow Rich, and if you read that book, he's got one chapter devoted to Napoleon Hill. He said the heading of the chapter was buy a guitar and start a band. He said it was almost like God spoke to him. First off with, he didn't own a guitar, and he didn't have a band, and he couldn't play a guitar, but he did. And he said what he learned in the reading the book was perseverance. The guys practice, and he said sometimes they get as little as $50, but they had to take to nightclubs or rough joints, we call them beer joints or honky tonks. He said they'd break out in fights, sometimes throwing beer bottles. And of course, we know he'd come out and he stuck at it. Sometimes they got a few $100s. Then he comes out with that song, Achy Breaky Heart, the girls love to dance with. And, you know, and then it looked like an overnight success. But it took him years to develop that. For just reading that book and said, this might be similar to what I am. I got such a belief in this thing is I'm not going to give up on it. This is what I'm going to do is, you know, I said, I gave a talk one time to a Chamber of Commerce. I think, I don't know where it's here. I was president of it for 1 year when I was in banking. And this lady comes up to me at the break, was having lunch, and she said, I was talking about goals. She said, I always have goals. I just don't write them down. Said, I can remember them. I said, yeah, that's what we call dreams. I said, the reason we write them down is it's a contract with ourselves. Carlos puts his name on there and he said, this is what I'm going to do. And you list them 1, 2, 3. And you look at that list over and over again and you say, I've not done nothing about this one. And then, but you do what it takes to do it and you cross it off and you do the next one, same thing. And you look up, it's up September, October, November, and you got something you're like doing. You say, I'm going to get off my butt and go to work on this. You know, I was going to do this, and I did. But we write them down. And it was a guy that did me some emails. He said, there was no point in writing something down. If you really wanted it, you'd remember it. And I said, well, you know, maybe you're sharper than I am, but it's a contract with myself. And so help me, God puts out a little verse, which I read every morning. And the verse that morning that was in this email conversations was, I just sent him that verse. It's in that chapter. It starts off, I can't say the name pronunciation, but it starts off at JK. And it says, your plans, write them down and write them plainly. And I sent him that verse and he said, you won. So, there's some advice after real old that we can, I don't say you have to take all advice, but you can ask yourself, what does that mean? And gosh, to be able to learn from others. I mean, you can go back and read Leonardo da Vinci's biography. He's painted The Last Supper in 1495, took him years. It's 20 foot high, 29 foot across. But it took him years to do it. I guess that's perseverance. In the same way, here's a guy that painted Last Supper, Mona Lisa, no doubt the most two famous paintings in the world. And of course, he was a good painter, but he had persistence. He kept making changes on it, changes on it, changes on it. And even he kept detailed notes, like on painting The Last Supper. Christ has got on a blue about this color. He stands out so much more. He explained how he mixed that up to get that bright color, because he stands out among the 12 apostles. He's 6 of them on each side, but he explains all the details and appears to be emotions and so forth. And I mean, it's just wonderful from running that guy. Here's a guy in the 1490s that studied his art and so forth, and he was on payroll of the Pope and so forth. So we can learn, if it's just one little detail, as you learn a lesson in perseverance, or a lesson about having ideas, or lessons of seeking help from others. And I'll tell you one thing that kind of surprised me is, and of course I got some friends that's just fabulously wealthy, but I have discovered that people are busy. The busy people, the one gets up done, they're more apt to help you, assist you, than someone that's got nothing but time. Yeah. And I know Doc Smitty, our chairman, catcher at college for 40 years. He died last year at age 96, and he was actually on my bank board also. He talked about such things like that, and what he had told about how he acquired some money for scholarships and gifts to the college and also so forth, was he just had a lot of nerve to ask people and to not give up on something. You had an idea and not say, that guy, he ain't gonna give no money, and just be afraid to, and so you can learn something from other people, from what they've done, and from reading their books and what have you. And I said, sometimes it will be a different lesson from different people. Sometimes people was concentrate on developing a new idea. Other people would be the value of persistence. Other people would be the value of a mastermind, or being able to work with other people. Because I know I had 2 partners, and one of them had done in the building business. I can't drive a nail. I mean, I have absolutely no talents whatsoever. But as my wife told some people one day, she said, Don can almost do nothing, but he can always find somebody to do it. Yeah, she meant to be funny, I think, but I took it as a compliment. Because I cut my hand one time trying to change a light bulb in my driveway. I live behind a gated fence, and the lights come on. I was going out one night, and I was taking it out, and I wanted to scoot down, but not get my pants, not get my knees on the ground. And I stumbled, and the bulb broke, cut my hand right in the middle, which messed me even up. I called the hospital where I was chairman of the board. I told the lady, I said, I cut my hand on the light bulb, and I said, I got it to stop bleeding. She said, is it one of them new light bulbs? And I said, yeah, it's one of them. It's been in there for 2 or 3 years probably. And she said, you better come down and let us check it because they're poison. I said, thank you very much. So I was talking to my daughter later about that. And I said, yeah, your daddy can't do nothing. I said, I'm going to write a book about things I can't do. I said, I've already started a column. I said, the first one is I can't change the light bulb without cutting my hand. And she said, Daddy, I wouldn't worry about it. She said, you get pretty good making money. I said, okay.
Oh, wow, Don, what an amazing, man. I really appreciate it, my friend. Don, I wanted, end this interview with a question here. That's something that's so meaningful that I always, remind myself, you know what I mean? It's, if you have, 5 minutes to live, what is the message that would you like to live for the world? Something that for them to always remember.
Well, I'll tell you, Carlos, I know we always talk about leaving a legacy, what we've done, if we're going to remember about it. I tend to change that a little bit, and I'd say was not leaving a legacy, but live one. I want to see these kids benefit. We have 20 scholars here. They've done amazing work, doctors, pharmacists, or CPAs, or whatever, in business. But I can see that while I'm still here. I don't have to, why do I have to die to create something good? Why can't I help some kid go to school? And plus I've helped 30 some kids besides those 20. I'm helping more than 50 kids go to college. And so there's satisfaction in it, and I'm seeing it. I'm enjoying it while I'm here. I'm living it rather than leaving one.
Yes.
I would not want to say, I wonder how much he had in stock when you were laying there with spread out people walking by. I would hope somebody would say, wonder how many kids he helped. Yeah. That would be good enough. The fact is, right now, is I saw my neighbor up the street. She's helping. There's an organization called Distressed. It's got distressed young or something other. So I saw she did it. So her husband's a sheriff and lived down the street, and he all looks after my stuff when I'm gone. And of course, I live behind a gated community, and I got alarms and all, and I never had any problems. But and I've got, I can pull up my ADT on my thing. Even when I was doing a cruise and seminar a couple of years ago on the British Columbia, I could pull it up and see if the camera's all in place, and I could check the rooms and see if nothing's done. And so I called her and I said, Shalon, I said, I saw you post on her. What are you doing? She said, well, we have about 300 kids that are they're displaced. I said, what do you mean they're displaced? Well, the parents has forsaken them. They've been taken away from authorities for the cause of families victim of drugs or whatever. And she said, we try to put something other together for them. I said, what's the age of them? She said, probably the average age is 8 or 10 years old, or even some younger than that. And I said, well, what do you put together? She said, we always would try to get a blanket for all of them, a little, lap blanket or whatever. Some other things like I said, well, how about a book? And so we have a little children's book. And I said, yeah, I can give you 300 books and I'll buy the blankets for you. I said, I'll stop and see you over the weekend. I said, I won't have any free time until Saturday or Sunday one. And, we can do things while we're here, that I think makes a meaning. And of course, I'm not the most religious person in the world, but I remember the verse. I pick out one a year on something or another that appeals to me, and one of them one year was Acts 20:35. It's more blessed to give than receive. And what people don't realize is, if I give someone a book or help a kid to school, I ain't gonna get nothing from that kid, but I get the satisfaction of it. And when we're doing good for others, we have freedom. We're not jealous of nobody. We're not envious of people's made more than we already. And that's the only way you can be creative, is not have nothing pressuring your mind on it. If you're sitting there worrying about somebody's got more money than you, why don't you concentrate on people that's got a lot less than you got? Yeah. Because as long as we're comparing ourselves, it's always somebody got more, unless you're maybe, well, I wasn't going to say Jeff Bezos, but I guess he's given up IFS through the Amazon divorce. But or Bill Gates or somebody else. There's always somebody got more. And if we're not careful, we can be like Peggy Lee's song, "Is This All There Is?" I'd say, I'd be happy if I got that Mercedes. I'd be happy if I get my Rolex. And they do make you feel good of accomplishment. There's nothing wrong with being good to yourself, enjoying good food, good clothes, or travel, what have you. But if that's the only thing that gives you satisfaction, it's never going to be enough. Yeah. Because they don't last forever. Yeah. But you can look back and see some little kids you helped go to school and how successful they've been. That'll always remain with you. And so I think that comes to us as we're older. I know when I was 20, making $1.10 an hour, I was reading these books. And my wife's watching television. I'm sitting there and I'm giving you a pad out. I ain't told this 1,000 times, but I've told it a few times. I listed some things I wanted. I wanted a gold Rolex, $1 million in the bank, and a black Mercedes. That topped it. Okay. I mean, that said, it just said, Dawn, you made it now. I thought that was important. And my wife, she looked at him. She said, don't think I'm crazy, but said, when you go about something, I said, I really believe you. And I said, well, thank you. And then so a little bit later, she said, don't tell nobody. I said, I'm not going to tell nobody. She said, because if you do, they think you're crazy. And so later we got a life about it. We got a life about it. And I said, now if you go back and think about that, to ask for those things is that I would say that was absolutely stupid. But at that age, you thought it's necessary. That showed that you'd accomplished something or other. And that was what I was more interested in. It was to just simply show that I was able to accomplish something other with hard work and discipline and sticking with it. I thought that would say, well, yeah, you've done okay. At that time, I hadn't done okay, but I saw myself doing okay, and I always believed that. Just like right now is, I guess some people look. I send out an email that goes out to, say it goes to 400 different publishers, and well, for example, Old Book 5 Essentials, I've only done 10 contracts, and but you know they range from $15,000, $5,000, $6,000, $4,000. I'm doing in Vietnam, Korea, and these different places. I could say, well, Don, you sent over 400 emails and you only got 10 books. You only got 10 of them people. See, you could say, well, that didn't do good. I should have got them all. Well, you got to realize that that's success. It's success if you only got one of them. That's success, and that's where you got to look at it, because Outwitting the Devil, I think, got 45 foreign countries. But we still had so long. We got over 100 books, and we had some of them. This week, I've probably signed 12 or 15 contracts in foreign countries for books. I would like to have signed a few hundred, but if I can do a few contracts every week, I know the money. I know I'm going to do okay. Yeah. But you just keep at it. I mean, it's I don't watch television. I remember I told my wife, I said, come home one evening. I said, had lunch with an attorney today. I'm going to start a cable TV company. She said, now this time I don't believe you. I said, why? I said, you don't watch television. I said, but I reviewed the financial statement of a company called Adelphia, and which later the father went to prison and the son for embezzlement of their own company. They had stockholders, and they were forced to bankruptcy, and they sold out to which is now Comcast. But they were over half of their money, which of course I tell you this because using selling cable.
I used to work for Comcast for years.
Yeah, I know your story. But over half of their money what they got from people was used to acquire debt where they was expanding. So I convinced the guys. I said that we start one up, and we find out how much it costs to put one in for one town. And we hire somebody to do it. We hire somebody to work for one of the companies, and we put one in. We charge half of what they're charging. We'll save all this advertising. We won't have no borrowed money. We'll put it in it. And I said, back then it was $79. We was charged $39.
Wow.
And I said, so if ever who we sign up, he's going to tell the guy next door on each side of him. They're going to tell their relatives, and the phones are going to ring off the hook, and we'll never spend a nickel for advertising. I know they tell us about advertising, but we won't have no unnecessary expense. We'll let the public do our marketing for us. Yes. So we did one, and they contacted us, and they wanted to buy us. And the guy says, well, Mr. Green said, we will just cut our prices, and we got a lot of money. We can sit there. I said, no, you got a lot of money. You borrow a lot of money. I said, but see, I understand the federal communication. I've read the thing. You guys can't cut the rate because you got competitors. At least you could all the way across the state of Virginia. And I said, I was born in the dark, but it wasn't last night. You guys ain't going to cut the price. I know that because we're just one little old thing. So we hung up. So we did the second town. And we're taking our customers in this town. We're Matt Wise, town of 4,000 people. We sign them up left prices. We can hook them up. So we go to another town. They come back to us again. This time we're mentioning specific money. We weren't interested in selling it. And so we developed that one. And then we applied for a license. The county for the third town and the fourth town, we're going to do two at one time this time because we accumulating money and we're not paying none out to ourselves, and we're accumulating money and building. And then they offered us really, we've had it, I believe it's 12 years. But anyway, they were asking us really good amount, but they want stock. I told the guys, I said, you guys can take stock. I want cash. I don't know nothing about the company or what have you. And so we took cash and we walked away, and it was, I don't know, 2 or 3 years later, then they were forced to sell out and see the stock. I don't know what the stock was, but we never owned the stock. We had cash for it. But it was a good lesson because I didn't know nothing about cable TV. But I remember watch television, and it was fun. We only had 56 channels back then.
Tell me about it, man. I know a lot about those guys, man. I started door knocking on the projects when I was 19.
We had 56, and I remember we got in trouble because we didn't hit BET, the black channel. and we don't have many Afro Americans in the area. But we had 3 shopping networks. So we decided the one we get the least revenue off of, percentage of their sales. We got rid of it and we put that BET on it. And then they complained, some of them complained because we only had 2 shopping networks. I'm thinking, what do people do all day?
It doesn't matter what we do. So.
What do they do all day? I never ordered enough offer.
Oh, trust me, I was a long time in the industry. Well done.
We really didn't even have an office. I mean, we had a guy, a CPA.
I'm glad that I didn't went to your towns training people to go door to door to compete against you guys have off. No, but Don, thank you so much, man. Wow, just so much you share here. You made me go back in time to my childhood years, and the listeners, this is awesome. I normally I keep those with 30 minutes, but it's like, Don and I, we had so many stories. We can go on and on and on. But the biggest thing here, guys, I want you guys to take, the persistence, to believe in yourself. It doesn't matter how you start. It matters how you finish. Like you can be a philanthropist right now. You don't have to wait to do philanthropy. You do it right now. Like, what are you willing to give up to go make your dreams a reality? Like right now, people are preparing for, normally I record those interviews on Fridays. And, most people are getting ready for Super Bowl weekend and Chupati. I'm getting ready to serve. I'm getting ready to be out there and speaking. I was just speaking and, serving a school yesterday, speaking this weekend. And it's like, you have to be able to, and then you're on a stage, you become a master storyteller. You are there to serve people. You are not there to pitch people. And you add so much value. You educate to dominate, and eventually you will build an empire. And as long as you do it every day, you don't count the days, you don't count the weekends, you don't count the shares, you don't count the likes, you make the days count. You make the conversations count. You know what I mean? And that's what I want you guys to do. And go back here.
Absolutely, Carlos. I taught the course for 12 times at the University of Virginia's night class when I was a bank president. The first night I told them is, go home, look at your calendar. Some days not on it. What you're going to do, today's the day. No someday on the calendar. I said, you're going to enroll in a class. You're going to start a savings account. You're going to lose weight. And what you're going to do is, it's not someday, because that is a polite way that we have lied to ourselves. Someday I'm going to go back to school. Someday I'm going to make up to my friend I fell out with. Someday I'm going to start saving. Someday I'm going to pay my debt off. That's the biggest lie we tell ourselves is someday. We're going to do something. We're going to start on today. We're going to start on today, and then we can do something about it. And we hold that in our mind is, hey, someday is not on the calendar, but today is, and that's when I'm starting.
Yes, just awesome. And Don, my friend, thank you so much. Let us know, Don, where can they find you? Where can they follow you? What is the best website for them to go, to know more about you and the foundation and about your books? What is the best place they can go?
Naphill.org, NAPHILL.org, naphill.org.
And I will drop that as well under the link, guys, right below this video. Go there, and just follow Don, the Napoleon Hill Foundation, just amazing, It's like, this is like, it would be very hard for somebody to, I've been interviewing so many amazing people, a couple of friends of ours, Don, and it'll be hard to outdo this one. So much value, so much nuggets. Follow us, guys. Keep coming back over here every Friday. I'm going to be interviewing amazing people. It will be hard to outdo my good friends over here, Don Green. Follow us as well on Instagram. I'm going to be keeping you guys updated there, dropping every day. Instagram, you guys already know, at Carlos Inspire. Just go there on Instagram and look us up. And then we're going to, but let's make every day count. And one thing that I always like to say, is something that, is the first verse, one of the first verses, and one of the first things that God says in the Bible, let there be light. You know what I mean? And Dawn, my friend, you are one of those lights that are out there. You be the light that you want to see in the world. You be that change that you wanted to see in the world. And you show up and you build yourself every single day and you enlighten yourself. Maybe somebody's not out there and nobody have to tell you that they love you. You don't have the money, and you may in the slums right now of Brazil, Africa, just know that greatness is within you. And if you ask yourself and you remind yourself every day what you are made out of it, and you can do anything in life. And let's make every single day count and focus on the contribution, not on the acquisition. God bless you all. Have an outstanding rest of your day.
Thanks, Carlos. Anytime.